Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm gonna share a crazy story from my high school days. We took a field trip that turned out to be way more than we bargained for. So sit back, relax, and let me take you on a trip down memory lane. It all started on a sunny morning. Our class was buzzing with excitement as we boarded the bus for a field trip to a nearby nature reserve. We were all stoked to escape the monotony of school and spend the day in the great outdoors. As the bus rumbled along, I couldn't help but notice that the landscape outside was slowly changing. We were supposed to be heading to a lush, green forest, but instead we found ourselves surrounded by vast, desolate fields. The silence on the bus was eerie, and I could feel a sense of unease creeping over us. We finally arrived at our destination, which was nothing like what we expected. Instead of a thriving nature reserve, we were greeted by a desolate, abandoned farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. Our teacher, Mr. Johnson, seemed just as puzzled as we were, but decided that we might as well make the most of it. As we ventured inside the farmhouse, the air felt heavy and cold. The place was a mess, with broken furniture and shattered windows. It looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Despite the creepiness, we split into groups and began exploring. My group headed upstairs, and that's when things got seriously weird. We heard faint whispers, like distant conversations, but we couldn't find the source. As we continued, we discovered a room that seemed untouched by time. Inside, we found a diary that belonged to a man named Samuel, who had lived in the farmhouse in the early 1900s. Samuel's diary told a chilling tale of strange occurrences that plagued him. He described eerie shadows that would move on their own, objects that disappeared and reappeared, and unsettling whispers that tormented him day and night. It was as if the farmhouse itself had a dark secret. With the diary in hand, we decided to show it to Mr. Johnson, hoping he could shed some light on the situation. But when we returned to the main room, he was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as we realized that the entire class had vanished. We searched the farmhouse frantically, calling out for our classmates, but received no response. It was like we were all alone in that eerie place. Fear gnawed at us, and we had no choice but to stick together. As we huddled in the main room, the whispers grew louder and more sinister. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on grotesque shapes. It felt like the farmhouse itself was alive and malevolent. We were trapped, and there was no way out. Hours passed, and our hope dwindled. That's when I remembered something from Samuel's diary. A ritual he had performed to appease whatever malevolent force haunted the farmhouse. Desperation drove us to try it. We lit a few candles, formed a circle, and chanted the words from the diary. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and a chilling wind swept through. The whispers ceased, and the shadows receded. It was as if the farmhouse had finally released its grip on us. We rushed outside and found ourselves back in the sunny field, with our classmates and Mr. Johnson, as if nothing had happened. To this day, we can't explain what occurred during that field trip. We never spoke about it again, and Mr. Johnson avoided the topic whenever it came up. The farmhouse remains a mystery, but one thing's for sure. It was an experience none of us will ever forget. The morning sun broke through the thick canopy of trees surrounding our high school class as we embarked on a field trip to a serene lake nestled in the heart of the wilderness. Our excitement was palpable as we eagerly anticipated a day of exploration and relaxation. Little did we know, this outing would forever be etched in our memories as the Lakefield Terror. We arrived at Lakefield, a picturesque oasis far removed from the bustling city. The pristine waters glistened under the bright sun, and the tranquil ambience of the place filled us with a sense of calm. As we set up for a picnic near the lakeshore, Mr. Anderson, our history teacher, shared fascinating tales of the region's past. Our laughter and the chirping of birds echoed through the serene surroundings, creating an idyllic atmosphere. Hours passed in blissful contentment, and as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the lake, our group decided to take a leisurely stroll along a narrow trail that followed a gentle stream. The stream's crystal-clear water sparkled as it wound its way through the dense woods, and the chirping of crickets serenaded our every step. It was as if we had stepped into a dream. However, as the path curved deeper into the forest, a sense of unease began to creep over us. The tranquil beauty of the woods seemed to darken, and a foreboding silence fell upon our group. John, a quiet but observant classmate, was the first to notice something peculiar. "Hey guys," he whispered, "have you noticed the red stains in the stream?" We peered into the water and saw what looked like streaks of dried blood marring the stream's otherwise pristine surface. Anxiety rippled through our group as we exchanged uneasy glances. "Maybe it's just rust or algae," one of us suggested, trying to dispel the growing sense of dread. But then, we heard it, the sound of heavy footsteps approaching through the underbrush. Panic seized our hearts as we realized we were not alone. A tall, shadowy figure emerged from the trees, clad in dark clothing and a mask that concealed their face. In their gloved hand, they gripped a blood-stained axe. "Stay back!" Mark shouted, his voice quivering with fear. The masked stranger didn't utter a word, but advanced toward us with chilling determination. We scattered in all directions, desperately seeking an escape from the menace that now loomed over us. As we ran through the woods, our hearts pounding, we stumbled upon a gruesome sight, a lifeless body, bound and gagged, lying at the edge of the lake. The victim's vacant eyes stared into the abyss, and a sense of horror enveloped us. "Someone call the police!" Emma shouted, clutching her phone in trembling hands. But before we could react, the masked figure caught up to us, their knife gleaming ominously. Panic-stricken, we fought back with every ounce of strength we could muster. In the struggle that ensued, the mask slipped from the assailant's face, revealing a face twisted by madness. It was a face we would never forget, as it belonged to a notorious serial killer who had eluded capture for years. With sheer luck and collective effort, we managed to overpower the killer, who was taken into custody by the authorities. The body at the lake turned out to be one of their unfortunate victims. Our field trip, initially meant for relaxation and learning, had become a brush with terror and death. The lake, once tranquil and inviting, now held a dark secret that would haunt our dreams for years to come. As we returned to the bus that evening, our laughter and excitement had turned into somber reflection. We had faced unimaginable horrors and emerged with a story that would forever bind us together. The chilling tale of the Lakefield Terror. And as we left that serene place behind, we couldn't help but wonder how many more secrets the woods and waters held, waiting to be uncovered by those who ventured too far into the unknown. The morning began with an overcast sky, a thick blanket of gray clouds hovering low, and a brisk wind that whispered secrets through the trees. Our high school class gathered for a field trip to an old, forgotten factory on the outskirts of town. Mr. Williams, our history teacher, was a true enthusiast of industrial relics, and he promised us an adventure we'd never forget. As we arrived at the factory, the place looked like a scene straight out of a dystopian movie. The buildings were worn and decayed, with shattered windows and crumbling walls. The air was heavy with the scent of rust and dampness, and there was an eerie silence that hung over the place. It felt like we were stepping into a forgotten world, one that time had long abandoned. "What just happened?" Emma said. "I said that something must have hit the door," I replied. But Luke said, "I think there was someone there." Splitting into small groups, each armed with disposable cameras to document the factory's history, my group ventured into the heart of the decaying facility. The machinery, once a symbol of bustling industry, now lay silent and corroded. Conveyor belts were strewn with debris, and rusted gears creaked as we cautiously explored. "Check out these machines, they look ancient," Emma commented. "And these old documents, they must be from a different era," David noted. But as we delved deeper into the factory, things began to take a bizarre turn. We stumbled upon a series of graffiti-covered doors that led us into a complex web of underground tunnels. The air grew colder, and our flashlights cast eerie shadows on the moss-covered walls. "Should we really go in there?" Jason questioned. "Mr. Williams said to explore everything, right?" Lena reminded us. Driven by curiosity, we decided to explore the tunnels, hoping to uncover their secrets. The further we went, the more disorienting it became. The tunnels seemed to twist and turn, leading us deeper underground, as if they had a mind of their own. "Does anyone else feel like these tunnels are changing?" David asked. "I think we should turn back," Emma suggested. Then, as we ventured further, we heard an echoing sound that sent a shiver down our spines. Faint, distant laughter, like the eerie echoes of children playing. It chilled us to the core, and we couldn't pinpoint its source. It felt like the very walls of the tunnels were mocking us. "Did you guys hear that?" "It sounded like kids laughing," Sarah observed. "This place is really starting to freak me out," Mark added. Determined to unravel the mystery, we pressed on. The laughter grew louder, reverberating through the tunnels, though there was still no sign of anyone else around. Fear crept over us as the eerie sound surrounded us. "This laughter is getting on my nerves," Jason muttered. "Something's not right here," Lena agreed. And then, as we rounded a corner, we stumbled upon something inexplicable. An underground chamber filled with old, decaying mannequins. They were arranged in odd poses, some with missing limbs and others with shattered faces. It was a sight that defied explanation, a bizarre collection hidden in the depths of the factory's underground. "What's with all these mannequins? This is seriously creepy," David said. "I don't like this place. We should leave," Emma urged. Just when we decided to leave, the laughter returned, echoing through the chamber. We spun around, but there was no one there. It was as if the very walls themselves were laughing at us. Fear gnawed at our hearts, and we realized we had to find our way back. "Let's get out of here now," Sarah exclaimed. "Agreed. This place is giving me the heebie-jeebies," Mark concurred. But the tunnels had other plans. They seemed to shift, rearranging themselves, leading us further into the labyrinth. Panic set in as we realized we were lost, and every turn we took only deepened our confusion. "This isn't the way we came. How did we get so lost?" Jason questioned. "We need to find an exit, and fast," Lena urged. Hours passed in the underground maze, and anxiety hung over us like a heavy shroud. It felt like we were trapped, with no way out, and we couldn't shake the feeling that the tunnels had a sinister purpose. "I can't take this anymore. We need to find a way out," David exclaimed. Finally, just when we had all but given up hope, we stumbled upon an exit. Bursting out into the open air, we found ourselves back at the factory's exterior. But something had changed. The factory now looked different, as if it had aged in the few hours we had spent underground. "What just happened? This place looks different," Emma said. "I have no idea, but I'm just glad to be out of those tunnels," Jason replied. Returning to the bus, we found Mr. Williams waiting anxiously. We recounted our harrowing experience, but he couldn't explain the strange happenings in the factory. "You kids went into the tunnels? That was never part of the plan." Months later, news headlines shocked our community. 13 dead bodies were discovered in a hidden chamber next to the mannequins we had encountered during our fateful field trip.